What is up, everybody? This is the Love Works podcast, and this is Aaron Hass. But guess what? This is a good episode. I've got a great guest for today. The greatest guest of them all, in my opinion. Some call her mom. I'm one of them. Other people call her mom. They're one of them too. But this is just an awesome person, a great being of the human nature. She is an entrepreneur. She is a friend to many, a ministry leader, a ministry owner. She is Kim Daly. What is up?
What is up, son of mine?
Yeah, man, this is my mom. Come on.
What
Come
a
on.
fun title. That of all the titles that I have, like you left off a couple of them, like Queen of Everything, those kinds of things. But my favorite title is Mom. No kidding. And I love that you led with that because that is perhaps one of my best accomplishments in spite of y'all. Y'all are alive. And for the most part, incredible human beings. I crushed it as a mom. I'm still crushing it. I have 105 kids. Yeah, I got a whole bunch of them. Yeah.
You ever wanted to be just like in a moment, was there ever a moment you're like, I would give Aaron up to just about any raccoon in the world,
There was a season of your life from birth till about 18 where I was like, does anybody want this kid? Because he's making me, I never condone child abuse or alcoholism, but I considered both with you. You were just, you kept me close to Jesus in a way that a lot of the other children did not manage to do. So
that's good. Sanctification.
Oh, baby.
At its finest. Mm-hmm. That's good.
Yeah,
that's good.
You did.
So you're a mom. You're a business owner.
Yep.
So let's hear about your business a little bit. Let's give me the tea.
Well, I will give you the tea. It's super unexpected. I did not in my 5th grade journal write down, what I want to do when I grow up? I would like to own a bakery and make cheesecake. But that's what I do now. I own 2 bakeries in DeSoto County, Mississippi. They're City Hall Cheesecake, and we make a ton of cheesecake for our community. But my passion is not cheesecake. My passion is people.
Come on.
And so I bought the bakery not to make cheesecake, but to make a difference. And I know that sounds really, really quirky and lame, but my goal was to be able to have a place of employment where we could get real, where we could talk about Jesus, where we could meet people where they were, we could give people opportunities, and we could produce a product for the community in the process. So that's what it was about.
When you bought this company, as it was about to go out of business.
Yeah, dude, it was the craziest thing. So I have a ministry and have had it for a number of years now. Gosh, I guess it's been about 15 years, called Love Works, which is so wild that my child would have a podcast called Love Works. The creativity just flows through both of us. It's amazing.
That's good. Yeah, it just popped in my head one day.
Just flew in there out of the blue. Yeah.
I was just like, man, I was like, what is a good name for a podcast? Actually, I had people, I was kind of bouncing the idea off of a couple people because I kind of kept it inconspicuous. I don't even know if I used the word inconspicuous correctly.
You sort of, yeah.
I don't even know what that word is, but I just kind of said it. But yeah, I was bouncing the idea off of some people, and they were like, that's a terrible name. And I'm like, first off, you make me want to use the name more.
Also rude.
Yeah, dude. I'm like, dude, don't you dare talk about my mom like that, They're like, what are you talking about? I'm like, you're disrespecting my mother right now, dog.
Hold my earrings.
Yeah,
we're about to roll.
Yeah, man.
In those moments when it feels a little disrespectful, when people throw stuff at me, my inner Glorilla comes out, and I'm like, I'm from Memphis. You have forgotten. I love Jesus, but I will throw hands.
Exactly. Exactly.
It's so funny. But I did have a ministry, back to the serious stuff, and still do. And it's called Love Works 2540. It's from Matthew 25:40, and the premise being that which
you
you've
got
done
that
to
verse memorized.
Oh, baby, I do. But that which you've done to the least of these, you've done unto me. Talking about when we serve the least of these, when we love the least of these, we're we're making a statement that other people can see that points people to Jesus, and we're doing it as an act of worship to the Lord. And the love works comes from the fact that in the book of James, it talks about, don't just know the right thing to do the dang thing.
Right.
Like, do it. And so it's kind of a play on words. I don't know if we ever really talked about this, but the fact of the matter is you can't just say you love people. Like, you got to have some work behind it. Like,
Right.
you got to do it. And so love works in an effort to bring God glory is basically the whole premise behind the ministry. Like doing the dirty work to honor the Lord in obedience to the Lord. So I had that ministry for a number of years, and our biggest issue was when people came through the ministry, homeless people coming out of prison, people just who needed an extra hand. There was not, I live in a small town in Mississippi, and so there were not tons of places to offer people employment that would be like second chance, third chance, 55th chance employment. So we prayed for a while, like, God, what am I going to do? Like, people need jobs, and I don't have a way to give people jobs. Like, I can tell them about Jesus, I can do these things, but I need to give them a paycheck. And that cheesecake place came up for sale. And the really wild thing was, I had $0 to buy the cheesecake. I mean, like maybe 73 cents. Right. But I'd been in ministry for a hot minute, so I didn't have money saved up. Any extra money we had was going to help people. And so had like $0, but had scraped together like this really embarrassingly low amount of money to offer as a, hey, well, I'll give you like $11.37 to buy this business. And went and met with the guy who was selling it, and walked out of there going, man, I would love to buy this place. I know nothing about cheesecake at all, and I don't know how to make it or run a business or a restaurant, but it sounded like a really great plan. Yeah. And so we left the meeting with the guy, and I was like, there's no way, like, I'm not going to be able to do this. And went home and really felt sad. I don't know if you even remember this, but like, you were out doing your own thing, running around, running the streets as you did.
Running the streets, come on. Yeah, put some respect on my name. That's right. I mean, running those streets.
Probably, that was in 2018. What were you doing in 2018?
I don't know, thugging it out.
Causing chaos?
I was probably doing something. I don't even know how old I was.
2018. Let's see, you were born, what year? You were 15 years old.
Yeah.
Dang, you were 15 years old.
I was doing some chaos.
Yeah, that was the chaos season for you. So you really were probably out running the streets. And I remember you coming home, and I didn't even tell you about it. I literally didn't even tell you, hey, we had met with this guy to try to buy this business. No joke. I was sitting on the bed in my bedroom, and I was really sad that there was not a chance. I just wasted his time and mine. And the dude calls us. Like, he calls and he says, listen, I love your heart. I love what you are going to do. I've figured out exactly how much I need to make from the sale of this business. And Aaron, I swear to you, it was the exact dollar amount that we had been able to scrape together to buy the business. And it was significantly lower than what he was asking for it. And without even a thought, I was like, sold. Wow. Because like when you have a stupid low number and then God just pricks somebody's heart to call you, it was so unconventional. And I don't know if you even know this, but I bought the business, seriously, having never made a cheesecake. I bought a cheesecake business and then learned to make cheesecake. I bought a business and then learned to run a business. I bought a business and then learned how to function as a whole adult. And it was kind of that thing, which is what I love about you. It's the thing that I got right as a mom. No kidding. I think that when you are chasing Jesus and when you are trying really hard to pursue things that matter, you don't have to figure it out and then go do it. You go do it and figure it out as you go. Build the dang plane while it's in the air and just trust the Lord.
That's
and like,
good.
I've watched you do that over and over and over again. Now, a few of your planes have been unconventional.
Yeah, like it's a paper plane that I got like a bunch of passengers on.
I mean, you throw people on the plane with you. You are not scared. It trips me out.
Like, dude, $1,000. This is going to be a brilliant business idea. And then I'll take their money and we'll spend it all. And I'm like, we screwed up, like big time. Like we shouldn't have tried to sell grilled chicken on the street side. Like that's not a good business plan.
Not a good business. But you know what I love? You it's a gift that the Lord has given you that it does make me really proud is passion.
Right.
Like so many people I think are missing that. Like we don't do the things that we should be doing in life because we are scared to like put our passion on display and fail. And I hope you take this the right way.
Probably won't.
You probably won't. I love that you are not afraid to fail and that you have failed and you keep getting back up. Yeah. You know, when we were talking about what we were going to talk about on the podcast, I had the thought, if there's something other than motherhood that I'm really proud of, it's that I get back up. And I think that a lot of that is the hope that I found in Christ, which makes me sound like a holy roller, but it's the truth. Yeah. Like, it is not that following Jesus has made life easy. It's that following Jesus has given me the hope that I need to pick my butt back up off the floor every time something knocks me down.
Come on.
Every time. And it's the hope in Christ. Because I don't know if you know this or not, but it's real. Yeah. Like the gospel is real. The hope found in the gospel is real. The Bible is real. Like every bit of that is 100% fact checked. Take it to the bank. Real. I've seen it in my life and I've seen it in yours. It makes me so happy.
Have you ever like had a moment in life or moments in life that you're like, man, is this thing even worth it? Is God even worth it? Is it real?
Yes.
Because as somebody for you, you've been you've been through it, but you've done fast-paced ministry. You've kind of done the backseat ministry. Yeah. You've seen different areas where God is there, where it feels like He may not be. Like, what are some moments in your life that you're like, I don't even know if God's alive?
There were.
Or did He leave me?
That's a good question. I have straight up had those moments. You know, we talked before we started recording about some things that maybe we might bring up, but you know, one time in particular, I remember we had. I hope you can say this you can say anything. You're Aaron, right? I had lesbian heroin addicts who were homeless, who came to live with us. And that sounds like such an unconventional childhood for you, but it's true.
I think about them every single day.
Let me tell you when I think about Shelby. I can say her first name. We'll never say her last name. Every time I pour a glass of orange juice. That's when I think about Shelby. So we had Shelby and her partner come and live with us after a particularly hard season in her life. She struggled with addiction. Great girl. You know I love Shelby like nobody's business.
And she had a great heart.
Oh my gosh. Like, could you love anybody more than I've never seen somebody with the capacity to love others more than Shelby. Like it was a really cool story because I used to teach way back in the day when you were a little kid. And so I had a relationship with her when she was a younger girl. And had known her a long time, and she had just had a tough life. Well, she and her girlfriend came to live with us after a particularly hard season. And I remember like sitting on the couch with them and talking about Jesus, talking about hope, talking about, man, all the things. They had so many questions, like they were raw questions. And we did it. Like I answered all the things. Beautiful. And eventually, Shelby and her girlfriend faced consequences for some of their choices and came out on the other side of it, and things were looking up. I mean, they really were. She was planning on opening a food truck and had reached out to me several times, and I lost it when I found out that she had been clean and sober for a very long time, and then one poor decision cost her life. And that was one of the times when I raged against God. I was like, what are you doing, God? Yeah. Like, she had come out on the other side. She wasn't homeless. She was on her feet. She was making great life choices. everything was looking up. Like she wanted Jesus. Like she had gone from somebody who was antagonizing me about Jesus, like, to somebody who was trying to follow him, and then she died.
Yeah.
And I wrestled. I wrestled a lot with how a good God could do that.
Yeah.
I was mad. I really was mad. I was mad. So that was one time. And, thinking back through all of that, you did not have a normal childhood, and that was so my fault. Like, I promise you, none of your friends are like, you remember that time Mom brought home the lesbian heroin addicts, and they lived upstairs for months and just were part of our family? Or the other time, the prostitute came and lived with us for a while, or the homeless man lived with us. Like, your childhood was not normal, and I'm so sorry, but I think that's why you're not normal.
Exactly. Dude, I will randomly pick somebody up, or I've invited people out to eat with me that are on the street, and people that'll see me do it that know me, because I'm not like, oh, guess what I did, but they'll see me and they're like, that you're an idiot, you're gonna get killed, and I'm like, awesome, and a great story for you to tell later.
Oh yeah, it'll be so fun. But also the other day, this is big facts. So for your podcast people, I'm gonna really ruin your man card, because Aaron FaceTimes me at least 19 times a day.
Dude, it's not even ruining it, man. That might elevate it.
For real, FaceTimes me. We have gotten past the morning FaceTime of does this match, and I think it's because you have to wear the same thing to your secular job every day,
right?
So you don't worry whether or not you match. But so the other day, you were FaceTiming me. I'm going to share this story because I think it is amazing. And it's that trickle-down effect of, what's that really quirky quote that people say, that lessons are caught and not taught? Like, people, if you want people to follow your faith, have a faith worth following and live it out. And that, I think, is what happened with you, because I never said to you, you need to be picking people up, you need to be loving people, you need to care about the least of these. Like, dude, it was just part of who we were as a family. It's just what we did. And so the other day, getting back to my story, do you remember when you were FaceTiming me? You're going down the road, you're FaceTiming me, and you're like, hold on just a second. And I hear you roll down your window. And
manually, by the way.
Manually. So I literally heard you. Boom, 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 boom.
Hey, man, I'm broke, so you better be listening to this podcast, dog. Please. His car is terrible. Yeah. Hey, don't disrespect.
But it works. It works. It's so cute. It's so, it is a
retro.
Whole vibe. It's a vibe. It's a vibe. Shorty got a vibe. Yeah, not in that car. So he rolls down his window, and I hear him talking to a woman, and apparently she was walking down the road, and it is cold here.
Right.
Like, it's for real cold outside. It's not Mississippi cold. Like, this is a whole next level cold. So he picks up this woman who needed some help, and he puts the phone down. So I'm looking at the underside of his steering wheel, and the girl gets in his car and doesn't know that he's FaceTiming with his mom, which I don't know why you wouldn't, as a grown man, want to flex hey, here's my mom, But it was so neat because I heard you asking her questions where are you going? Do you need some help? That kind of stuff. And she says to you, something to the effect of, your parents would be so mad picking up strangers on the side of the road. And you're like, no. No. And then immediately he goes, actually, I'm on the phone with my mom right now. And I got to FaceTime with the lady you were picking up, which, by the way, those are the moments that, that's when I know I got motherhood right. I might have screwed up so much, but those are the moments where I'm like, dog, I killed that. Because I raised great humans. You may not be making 6 figures every month. You might not be doing that, but you really are a human who's making a difference, because I promise you that woman remembers that you picked her up, you took her where she needed to go, and you gave her help when no telling how many people drove right past her. You made a difference. Yeah. And that matters.
But she had been walking for miles.
Yeah, straight up in the snow.
Yeah, snowing outside.
Yeah. Yeah. But
Nobody. I'm just gonna say this for people that are skeptical right now. Nobody, no matter where they're at in life, deserves to have to walk in freezing cold weather or rain or ice or heat. Like, it's just like, man, what does it
wait a
say?
minute. Do you just think nobody should have to walk if there's weather?
Yeah, just nobody deserves to walk. Just like buy them a scooter or something.
Yeah.
No, I'm just playing. But there's just like there comes a point where it's like if you can even make a minimal impact in that person's life, I guarantee that they're gonna remember
Yep.
that. And if you even slide in the word like, man, I believe in Jesus, they'll be like, oh wow.
Yeah.
That person had something different about them, and that was it.
Do you know what I hear most frequently? Truly, and is profanity is
You're allowed to say whatever you
okay.
want.
Well, I hear so often like people who are, this is the profanity, and you might have to bleep it out, but people who are pissed off at Christian, is pissed off a bad
No,
word?
what
Okay.
are you talking?
I don't know.
Oh, good Lord!
Okay.
Now I'm gonna get criticized because people are like, Aaron thinks that pissed off is profanity.
No, Kim, I just don't. Anyway, people get pissed off because Christians don't look like Christ, and I think that anytime we have an opportunity to extend kindness to someone who can do nothing in return back to us, that's when we look the most like Jesus, and that's when our witness has some credibility. If you had just driven by her and shouted out a Bible verse, nothing, right? Like that would have been nothing. But you looked like Christ in that moment because you met somebody in their moment of need. You extended kindness. You asked for nothing in return, and you drove away glad. Like it did something for you in your heart to be able to go, man, I got to do something that mattered today. Because if I were to ask you, I've known you your entire life. Like I was there the day you were born. Yeah.
Me too.
Yeah. It was awesome. It was snowing that day. Did you know that?
Yeah, in Mississippi. So
Yeah,
that's
it was.
crazy.
No. You were born in Memphis. Did you forget?
My bad.
I'm from Memphis.
My bad.
Anyway, you probably don't remember much else about that day. If I asked you to tell me 3 other things that happened that day, you can
When
remember.
I was born?
No, the day you picked up the lady.
Oh. I'm about to say, because I've heard stories and I was going to pretend like I knew.
Yeah, you did not know what happened. This is a fun fact about the day that you were born.
I feel like I know what story you're going to tell.
Okay, tell it, and I'll tell you if it's right or wrong.
The cookie story?
What cookie?
Didn't my father bring in like...
No, that was the day your other brother was born.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I remember you got upset about that.
Well, because they were eating cookies and I couldn't have anything to eat and I was starving.
Yeah.
They're over there eating cookies. I'm mad all over again. Thanks for bringing that up.
Yeah, exactly.
But they learned, and the day that you were born, they bought me a family-size portion of banana pudding, and I ate it all by myself. I shared none
good.
that
Hey.
day. So the day you were born, I had banana pudding, and I still you're 22. You turned 22 yesterday.
Yeah.
22 years later, I still remember how delicious that banana pudding was.
Wow.
Yeah. Shirley made
homemade
it.
or-
Yeah,
oh,
Shirley made it. It was so good.
Yeah.
It was so good. Yeah. She brought it for like everybody, and I ate it
That's, hey.
by
I'm
myself.
proud of you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Proud of you. That takes some grit and determination.
I did. I ate every bite of it. I was not even ashamed.
Clean that plate.
Clean that bowl. It was like
Clean
a
the
giant
bowl, like a
Tupperware.
vat.
I
like
did.
a casket full of banana pudding.
No, you don't say banana in the South. It's nana pudding. Nanner.
That is
nanner.
true.
Yeah. Which
That
is
is
so
true.
weird because
Nana
nanner
pudding.
sounds like it might be like a grandparent.
Or
and
like a
grandparent
like a
pudding is
sexual
so.
phrase.
Oh, gross. No, we don't talk about sexual phrases.
I'm
Nanner?
sorry. I don't know. It sounds inappropriate.
Nanner?
I don't know. It just sounds like you would.
No, you would not stop. Delete this immediately.
like cut this part. Actually, restart the whole episode. You're not allowed to say the word sex
Or, yes, that's right.
or nanner anymore. Nanner and sex is ruined.
Forever.
Nobody else is allowed to have manners or sex anymore. And definitely not at the same time.
And also, we just stopped the progression of humanity from this point forward because no one can have sex. This is how we die.
I know, man.
All because
I
of your
know.
podcast.
Hey, you know what?
So bad.
That might bring in some revenue.
It,
People
no.
will be maybe not.
People will be dying to hear, oh, did you see what I was saying? They'd be dying. Never mind. Anyway, that's cool. So back to like serious stuff
Yeah.
for real. That's the thing, like when I said at the beginning that I'm so proud of, that's it. It truly, because you do things that matter. And even this podcast, like your heart behind this podcast makes my heart very happy. So when I have those moments where following Christ has cost me something, it does my heart a whole lot of good to take a step back and then maybe look from a different perspective at what I've gained.
Yeah.
Because I have lost a lot. I've lost a lot of relationships. My marriage ended, which was devastating.
Yeah.
Lost a lot of family relationships because of the color of adopted kiddos' skin. So it has cost a lot. But there have also been exponentially valuable gains in my life, and I have seen the goodness of the Lord even in the seasons where it didn't feel really good.
Right.
Yeah.
Wow, that's powerful.
Well, I mean, yeah, I'm a baller. Yeah.
She said, I'm a big baller.
Yeah. Shot caller. Yeah.
That's right. Yeah, so yeah, let's actually talk about that. So relationships. Yeah, like what are we talking about?
What are we talking about?
Yeah, your relationship, and how those have kind of been just. It almost seemed like some of them just like burned away.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
And that had an effect on a lot of our family, I would say. So
Yeah.
let's talk. Let's get deep.
Yeah.
What is your
So,
relationship life look like?
Yeah. It did have a huge impact. I want to talk about my grandmother. Is that cool if
Yeah.
we talk about Gran? So, much of my life I spent with my grandmother.
Right.
Much of it. She was a phenomenal influence in my life. In fact, if you ever come to our bakery, which I hope that your listeners will.
Tell them the name
pull
of
up City Hall Cheesecake in DeSoto County, Mississippi, Hernando, and South Haven. Like, pull up. We have 160 flavors of cheesecake. This is not a cheesecake podcast, but it's show up.
it. We can make it one.
It's Cheesecake for Jesus. We're like the Chick-fil-A of cheesecake.
That's a good.
That's a good tagline.
You
I
should
think,
put that on a T-shirt.
Can I? I think that I might
We're
have
like
some
the
copyright infringements. But anyway,
Would you? I don't know.
I don't know. We
how
can
that
check
works.
into it. So my grandmother, if you ever come to the bakery, you might experience a flavor of cheesecake that is 100% influenced by my grandmother. Like our praline pecan cheesecake, the praline recipe on top is my grandmother's recipe. Like she legit taught me
I
how
never
to
knew
make
that.
that. Yeah, it is. A lot of the pies, like the pie that we put in the middle of our chocolate, it's our chocolate chess pie cheesecake. That chocolate chess pie I learned to make in my grandmother's kitchen. Like, much of who I am was developed in my grandmother's kitchen. In fact, my grandmother took me to Vacation Bible School where I heard the gospel and I came to know Christ. So when I talk about my grandmother, she is a pillar in my life. Like, I am who I am because of the influence that she had on me. She's a deeply rooted Southerner, grew up in the Depression, like every stereotype you can think of for a Depression era Southerner, she fits.
Right.
Right down to having a problem with people because of the color of their skin. Wow. So, when ministry started, I don't know if you even remember this, but our life began to really pivot when we picked up a guy named Larry, who was in his 50s.
I was hoping we would talk about this because this is transformational for my life.
Yeah.
Picking him up.
It's a moment. Yeah. So maybe I'll go back there and I'll tie it back to my grandmother.
Yeah.
So initially we picked up a guy like you did who was walking. Who needed a ride, found out where he worked, ultimately invited him to our house to dinner a couple of days later because, like, I don't know, we had space at the table and had food, and it seemed like the right thing to do. And, I'm a big fan of You don't have to know the end of the plan. You just have to do the next right thing, right? So we had dinner. He needed dinner. I invited him to dinner. That night at dinner, he kind of shared his story. And at the time, he was homeless, right? So he was living in a mini storage unit that, no lie, Aaron, was smaller than my closet.
Wow.
No heat, no electricity, none of that. And
He had a candle that kept him warm.
Oh, straight facts. He had a candle that he burned in the mini storage unit to keep him warm and provided all the light. And he walked to work every day. And we had, picked him up, and that's how we discovered him anyway. So he has dinner. He tells us his story. And that is the moment, that little act of obedience, inviting someone into our home, that is the first time I can remember caring about somebody who wasn't related to me or in my circle, because he was basically just a stranger who had dinner with us. And my heart broke for him that night. Like, I remember the look on his face. I remember where I was sitting. I remember that moment, because that is a transformational moment in my spiritual walk. It was when my faith grew feet.
Wow.
Like, it was the moment that love began to have some action behind it. It wasn't just a concept. It wasn't just a Bible verse memorization. It was, let's do the dang thing, right? So he tells us about his life. I hear about the racism that he's endured. I hear how he became homeless. I hear the loneliness. He talks about the death of family members. He talks about all these things. And at the end of supper, here's what happened. He didn't have a bed to sleep in. Wow. And I had an extra one.
Come on.
So we invited him to spend the night, which sounds like a really dumb thing to do, right? Like, you've got a homeless man of a different race who you know nothing about, who had supper with you, and you're going to invite him to sleep over. I didn't tell you that you build the ship as you're flying, or build the plane as you're flying it, because you watched me do it your entire life. I too figure it out as I go. And so he spent the night. I remember going to bed that night thinking, like, what if this dude kills me? Like, what if I just invited somebody to sleep over and he's going to kill me in my sleep? Or what if he's going to steal all my stuff? And, I had those thoughts. So don't think I was like some kind of saint. I'm a sinner just like everybody else. Yeah. And I was worried about my stuff and my life, But I woke up the next day and I was not dead. The only thing that was weird is that there was a black man sitting at my kitchen table who was scared to death that I was going to kill him. He was really glad I didn't kill him either. I mean, like, we were both like, word up. You're not a murderer, neither am I. This is cool.
Hey, respect, tapped them up and everything.
Absolutely. I was like, this is awesome. And I remember he left that day to go to work. And at the end of the day, he didn't have anywhere else to go. So guess what he did? He came back for dinner and spent the night again and again and again. And, Larry lived with us for, over a year. Yeah. And God changed my life in that time. And God changed your life in that time.
Absolutely. That was the first time I saw Jesus in action.
Absolutely.
In other people's lives.
Yeah.
Like, people can go to church.
Yep.
They can see a preacher talk.
Yep.
But until you see that stuff in action, you're like, is God really there? Is this actually happening? But I saw how much he began to love me. I remember even sitting on the floor. We would just play cars or do whatever it was. And just, it was awesome. It felt real. Like it was just,
It's when you say that the gospel means something. And that's what was so cool to me. I was confronted with my own racism. Did you know that?
Wow.
Like, having Larry sit in my house, I recognized that I had preconceived notions about people with different skin colors that I'd never confronted because I'd never had a black man sitting in my house.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't know all the things I didn't know about another race. And it's so neat to have to face those preconceived notions that you have about other people, to have to confront it and to have to own it and to have to work through it. And I had to work through it in real time, because I grew up in Deep South. I actually grew up with a Confederate flag in the hallway of the home I grew up in.
Wow.
Word. I did. And I want you to know, I don't think I ever really understood what that Confederate flag meant or how it was offensive until my life began to break carefully constructed racial barriers.
That was very well worded.
Oh, thank you. I know a lot of words.
Yeah.
So until I really began to kind of break down these barriers. And it was when Larry moved into our home that my grandmother really began to struggle, because she could not understand. She liked the idea that I was helping someone. She hated the idea that I would have a black man living in our home.
Wow.
And she had preconceived notions about the character of homeless people and the character of black homeless people.
Wow.
She assumed that I was putting you in danger, that I was putting your brother in danger, that I was putting myself in danger. And I think the real danger would have been if I had turned a blind eye to somebody in need.
Yeah,
I think that's when I would have been putting you in danger.
Right.
Is when we pretended that there weren't people around who needed
Would
help.
I ever see God in that light if you wouldn't have done
No,
that?
you got saved shortly after all this.
Right.
Like that is when, like, you began to really question. And I remember I saw you worship in a church for the first time. And I mean really worship. I mean throw your hands up, sing with all your might as a little kid in a church. And it wasn't just I'm singing a song because I like to sing. There were tears in your eyes and conviction in your heart that I'd never seen before.
You
And it
remember
was
that
beautiful.
day?
Oh, of course. I remember where we were sitting. Like, I remember where we were sitting at Life Point Church in Senatobia, Mississippi.
Yeah.
I remember looking over at you. You have got your arms out, like reckless abandon. Like it was that moment where your soul met your Savior. I remember seeing it. And I remember looking down at you with tears in my eyes because my soul knew what was happening in your soul.
Wow.
And it was beautiful. And I do think that little act of obedience paved the way for you to be the man you are right now.
100%.
Which is so cool. But my grandmother really wrestled with that. And boy, howdy, did she super wrestle when Mr. Larry introduced us to other people in need, which is how ministry got started. So Mr. Larry, as he's living with us, he's no longer on the streets. His friends are like, dude, where are you? And he's like, I'm living with this Miss Kimberly. He still calls me Miss Kimberly, which weirds me out because whatever. But I let him do it.
Hey, it's sweet, though.
It is so sweet. And he called me Mom for a while. Did you know that? I had a man who was at that point
older than you,
older than me, calling me Mom. Yeah, it was so weird. I was like, is this normal? I don't think it is. But I think that he just so longed to feel loved and to feel family and I think y'all called me Mom, and he would leave me notes, and it would be, Mom, thanks for whatever, or it was really big facts. It weirded me out at first, but now thinking back on it, I'm like, when I tell you that story, I can see the notes that he left me in his handwriting with some quirky misspelled words and stuff, and it blesses my heart.
And I picture, as you were saying that, I picture him writing that.
Yeah, like sitting in his room.
There was something deep in him writing that.
Yeah, so sweet, so sweet. So much healing happened through there, but he introduced us to the people in his world, and my eyes were open to a community that I never knew existed. A community where maybe they weren't in the worst abject poverty you've ever heard, but there was food scarcity. Maybe there wasn't enough money to pay rent. Maybe there wasn't enough money to keep the lights on. There were people living on the streets. There's, women prostituting to survive. There's addiction. Like, I saw things that I didn't even know existed in my cute little manicured town, and it was because Larry introduced me.
Right.
Well, fast forward, one of the first people he introduced me to was a young mom who had small children, and that young mom needed help, and she needed help for herself. And when I say young, she's young. She was younger than you are now, so she was 19 and had several children on the streets. And those children are your brothers and sisters now.
Exactly.
Yeah, and so.
I picture it now. Like, I see it. I see every bit of us picking them up. I see all of it.
It was a Wednesday.
Yeah.
Do you know the first place we ever took him to eat? Do you remember?
Wendy's.
Wendy's. Big. And do you know, like, Joe, our youngest, he wasn't even alive then, but his favorite place in the whole wide world to eat is Wendy's. Like, boy needs, like, what happened? How did that happen?
Yeah,
I don't even understand. Like, I just can't even handle it. But yeah, took him to church.
Thought of that.
Yeah, and Larry, do you know that night in church, Jeremiah sat in Larry's lap.
Wow.
Larry, who had been living with us, is now pouring into other people who needed help.
Yeah.
So it's that trickle-down effect. Like, it really is. I think once you see love in action, you want to be a part of it. Yeah. And I watched Larry want to be a part in loving somebody else. It's just incredible. So when it was bad when just Larry was living there, but once your brothers and sisters, they didn't come in as your brothers and sisters. They just came in as people we were trying to help. And then ultimately, there's a whole saga that happens. We ultimately ended up adopting them. But in that whole process, my grandmother really, really, really struggled. And I remember going to visit her and pulling up and having your younger brother and sister in the car. And of course, they're black. I say, of course, they're black. Like, everybody would just know that.
I just showed a picture.
Yeah,
right?
like, hello, black children. Cutest black kids you've ever seen. Actually, not even just cutest black kids. Like, the cutest kids. I mean, they're just cute
They're
kids.
Fun. They've got great smiles.
Oh, the best personalities. Like, they've been hell on wheels, but they've also been.
I probably taught them that.
You did, and I'm still angry about much of that.
But hey, man, you should try this.
No, don't. Like the time you set things on fire or tried to electrocute other siblings. Yeah, these are not things
not
that
them.
I wish. No, not them. You did not try to electrocute
I wasn't
them.
like, I hate that you're in my house now. Zap. It was my older brother.
Older biological brother, which is
and I hated him. I do still hate him.
No, you do not.
Kidding.
You love him.
Just kidding. He's awesome.
Stop. But once, so I went to visit her, and I remember pulling up in her driveway, and when I tell you that Granny's love for me is foundational, the way you call me is the way I used to call her.
Yeah.
Like, it was, hey, I'm making chicken salad and I can't remember your magic ingredient that you put in it. Can you stay on the phone with me and help me learn how to do it?
You're like, it's mayonnaise.
Yeah. No, like, she would tell me, like, the brand of mayonnaise.
Wow.
Like, yeah, it would, we just had that special connection. Like, she loved me well. And I remember pulling up, and I had the kids in the car, and I was hoping that she would meet them for the first time. And I got to the driveway, and she came out to hug me, and then she saw the kids in the car, and her face changed. And I was like, Gran, I wanted you to meet the kiddos. And she said, you can come in my house, but these ends can't. And she did not say ends. She said the actual word that I won't say.
That's good. Good
Thank
job.
you. Yeah, I will not say.
Good job.
I can't. I can't make myself say that word.
Yeah.
Like, I can't make myself do it.
Yeah.
And I made a choice that day that was hard. And I made the choice that I was going to do the right thing, even if it cost me something. And the cost of losing my grandmother, on that day, I thought she would come around quickly. I really did. I thought she would miss me enough that she would call me, or that I thought I would be worth her coming around. Yeah. That was 12 years ago. And that was hard. I was ticked off for a very long time because I prayed and prayed and prayed that God would soften her heart. I prayed that he would reveal the truth through Scripture, because Granny loves the Lord. That's the thing. Like, there's never been somebody before her who told me to chase Jesus.
Right.
Like, or took me to church. Like, there wasn't anybody. And so I couldn't wrap my mind around how a good God who had called me to follow him couldn't just change her. Couldn't change her mind. Couldn't soften her heart. Because Destiny and Jeremiah, like, they are straight up amazing. They were so fun. Now, they were wild as small children, but they were so fun.
Oh, yeah.
You could not be in their presence and not be intoxicated by them.
Yeah.
Like, love drunk. They were just, Jeremiah's sneaky laugh was the best thing in the whole wide world. And Destiny had more like sass than anybody I have ever seen.
Yeah.
Like any sassy, like chicken neck snap kind of thing.
Yeah.
She had it at 3 years old.
She did.
Like it was incredible. And I
did.
laughed and laughed and laughed.
They lacked no personality.
Oh my gosh.
They probably just like snatched personality up from other people.
Yeah,
and was
I
like, "This
feel
is not mine."
sad. Yes, because they have taken everyone's personality,
Yeah.
and now they have all the personality in the world.
So
They
great.
are amazing human beings,
Really.
like truly amazing human beings. And so, and biggest joy of my life. Like besides you, I mean, you're a joy as well.
Yeah, I'm like a second string Joy. When I turned 18, she forgot about this Joy.
Bounce, like
Yeah, she
you
was
got to
I'm
bounce.
done with this
Yeah.
one.
He's fully cooked.
Yeah.
Delete.
All
No,
the joy done ran out.
no. But you know what? I raise my kids to leave and
Yeah.
go change the world.
Come on.
I don't want you to stay at home under my wings. Like I really want you to fly.
Yeah.
I want you wherever you want to go, even if I disagree with it. I want my people to have such a rooted identity that you didn't need to be under my roof. You
right.
need to go and do what God was calling you to do.
Right. I'm about to get into the nanner business. You know
Oh
what
no,
I'm saying?
you're not. There are no nanners.
I'm about to hop up in that industry.
No, you are
Yeah, no.
not. That is the one industry that I will come and snatch you right out of. Do you hear me? You will be so embarrassed. You'll be like, I'm out here making nanners. And I'm like, hold on, y'all. His mama's here.
She grabbed me by the ear.
My mama said I can't make no nanners.
Yeah, never mind. I'm gonna have to go into retirement early. Like that you were the big name in the nanner industry.
Yeah, no.
Oh well, man.
Negative Ghost Rider.
She said no.
But you know, getting back to the serious part of it, that was a time when I was mad at God, and I was mad because of the cost of following Christ. Yet, in all of those years, 12 years, I've seen the goodness of the Lord in ways that a lot of people will never see it.
Yeah.
Never.
That's
Like I've
true.
seen miracle after miracle after miracle. I actually had somebody ask me the other day if I believed in miracles, and I just fell out laughing. I'm like, believe in them? Like I've
I am
lived
one.
them. Like
Yeah.
boy, bye. I mean, I've seen it. Like we could do a million podcast episodes, and I could tell you story after story that people, if I didn't have witnesses, nobody would believe.
100%.
But big facts, they happened.
Yeah.
Like big facts, they happened the entire time. So, yeah, that was a really long answer to that question.
No, that's good. That's good. So, we're 12 years later at this point,
Yeah.
and you go and you got a call that your grandmother was not doing well, and
Yeah.
that you should go at least visit her because
Yeah.
you don't know
Yeah.
when the time would be. You get up there, you're talking to her,
Yeah.
and you're. I know that you've gone and visited her like 2 or 3 times in these 12 years, I think.
Yeah, and it never went well.
And none of them have went well. But
Never.
you were like, I've got to do this because at this point it's for you. Like you needed to have a little peace.
Yeah, I think so. She actually fell on Christmas Day.
Yeah.
She fell out of her bed at the retirement facility where she was. And when she fell, she hit her head, and she laid there for quite some time, bleeding, and it was not good. And this is no shade on the retirement home because I really think that it's a fabulous place. I think the timing of her falling was just the exact wrong moment. They're fantastic. So I don't mean to throw any shade on them. So anyway, she had to go to the hospital. She was in the ICU. And my sister actually called and was like, listen, I feel like you need to go. And I'd be lying if I told you I didn't wrestle because I was not sure how that visit was going to go. But I walked into her room and I was very pleasantly surprised. Like she's at least 1,000 years old now, like at least maybe 1,500. So
Right.
I mean, she has lived an extensive life.
When people say they met Jesus, like no, she like met him.
No,
you
she
know?
changed his diapers.
Yeah,
I mean,
dude,
like for real.
She knew him.
She knew him. Like she knew him. So we had conversation. I was very surprised, first of all, that she knew who I was when I came in. But she knew immediately. And I do not mean to flex, but she told me I looked great, that I hadn't changed a bit.
Yeah, that's good.
So I felt really good about that. That was a good way to start the conversation. But we sat down and just talked. And we talked about a bunch of stuff that didn't matter at first, like cows and cell phones.
That sounds very, very, very much like a Southern elderly woman. Talking about cows.
Yeah, we talked about the food. Very Mississippi. We talked about the food. Cobbler, a lot of cobbler talk.
A lot of cobbler
talk. A lot of cobbler talk. But she also was sharing with me that she had been having some dreams lately. Wow. And that in her dreams, people who had passed were coming to visit her. And I was like, wow. And she said, I think that maybe God is telling me that my time is up, that he's talking to me and he's letting me know that I'm about to go home. And I said, well, Granny, I love that God is talking to you. God's always talked to you. And she said, this is so weird, Erin, I swear. She said, yeah, God's always talked to me. And she kind of sits up a little bit. And she turns and she looks at me, and it was like her eyes were so clear. It was wild. It was almost like we time traveled, and I know that sounds crazy, but to a place where she was, I don't know, she perked up. And she looks at me and she says, and God's always talked to you too. His hand's always been on you. Wow. I've always seen his hand on you. And I said, Granny, you're right. I do. The Lord does speak, and I listen. And I wanted to say, and I was listening back then when I adopted those kids, but I didn't say that. I got a bunch of sass. I told you I'm from Memphis.
Yeah, exactly.
But I just, I was like, he does. And anyway, we chatted a little bit more, and she had another moment where she just had this moment of clarity. And she looks at me and she says, they've taken really good care of me through the years. She's been in retirement homes and nursing homes for quite some time now, because I told you she's way old.
Yeah.
And she said, I've had the best nurses to take care of me, and I've had such a wonderful experience. And she said, they've loved me like family. And I'm like, oh, Granny, that makes me so happy. It makes me so happy to know that you've been cared for and that you've been loved. And I'm tearing up now because I think it's just a sweet moment. Right. And she says, and I have about 3 of my favorite nurses who have just, man, they did everything for me. And she said they were black ladies. It was the first time I had ever heard my grandmother refer to an African American as a black person and not use the N-word. Wow. And the way she spoke of those people was with such incredible love.
Wow.
Like my heart, like in The Grinch, where his heart grew all those sizes, and the music swells in the background, and you're like, I knew you had it in you, Grinch. I felt that way. Like I was like, oh my gosh, my heart is growing. It's going to explode. It was so good. But that's not the kicker. So she tells me that, and then she says, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry that I missed all those years because of the color of somebody's skin. I almost fell out of that hospital chair sitting there because I didn't want to go see her. If I'm being honest with you, I did not want to go see. I didn't want to face an icky situation, and I just didn't want to. But what God did for me that day was say, I heard you.
Yeah.
And while you didn't think anything was happening, I was changing a heart.
I was working.
You didn't see it. You didn't know it. I didn't even have to tell you.
Yeah.
But he, as a gift, 3 days after Christmas, had me sit in a hospital room, and he built up my faith in a way that it is just staggering, because that was years of prayers, years of pain, literally, Erin, wiped away with one sentence.
Wow.
To have her, I never thought I would get an apology. Like, never did I think that she would get over racism, because it was so deeply rooted in who she was. It was cultural.
Right.
I mean, she grew up in an era where it was the norm. So I never thought that I would see an end to it. And second, I never, ever thought, A, that she would think she owed me an apology, or B, that I would ever get one. But that apology felt like the world's most effective Band-Aid.
Wow.
It sealed up a wound that I had forgotten was oozing.
Yeah.
And it was such a beautiful moment. And so, in our time together this weekend, or I don't even know what day it is. Is this a weekend?
I think it's Friday.
Okay, this week then. We'll
Yeah.
call it this week.
Yeah.
In our time together, we talked a lot about like faith and the struggle to follow Christ, and is it worth it? And have you questioned faith? And the answer to all those things is, have I questioned my faith? Yes. Have I questioned whether it's worth it? Yes. And I think what keeps me going is those moments, those little winks from the Lord where he goes, I told you.
Wow.
I told you. It's
Like
real.
You stuck it out.
You stuck it out.
And I
Yes.
and there was I never let go of my promise towards you.
Never.
And that's what gets me. It's like, all right, God, what's happening?
Yeah.
Where you at? And I'll be yelling.
Word. Me
people,
too.
People ask me like, what's your prayer? Like, how do you pray sometimes or whatever? I'm like,
I scream at it.
like help. Get here, now.
And you know what? I've even had some of those angry prayers where I'm like, what is happening?
Yeah.
Like,
I think Jesus has heard me cuss more than anyone else.
I've heard you say some things. I hope you haven't talked to Jesus. Like,
Like some of the stuff I say.
Oh my word. I'm like, why are you saying those words?
Yeah.
And do those even go together in a sentence? You string together profanity in such interesting cadence. I can't even handle it sometimes. Yeah. And I'm like horrified, and it's kind of like a train wreck where you want to see it, but you really don't want to see it.
It's artistic.
It is. That is not the word that I usually use to describe it. But I will say, I think I am learning as I grow in my faith and I grow in wisdom that I'm no longer ashamed of the seasons where I struggle with my faith. And I think we have to be careful to share that with people. Wow. I don't want people to look at my life and think that everything has been squeaky clean and easy, and that I've been like, oh, I lost a relationship with my grandmother, but Jesus is worthy. No,
that bothers me.
Oh.
I'm like, you can cry.
Yes, and you can get mad.
Yeah.
You can get mad. Like, you can shake your fist, and you can be just as emotionally erratic as David was. That's why the Psalms are my jam. I used to hate the Psalms because I was like, David is a lunatic. Now I'm like, David is sane, because David said the truth to a God in heaven. He had such a close relationship with his Father in heaven that he could be honest. And I love that. And that's also, this is just, I don't know if this is podcast material or not, but this is what I love about you. Yeah. You've been able to, as a young adult, come to me in honesty and talk to me authentically and wholly as yourself, knowing that there is nothing you can say to me that is going to change my love for you. Like, I am for you. I am so for you all the time. And I think about that when I think about my Father's love for me. You know that verse where it says he delights over you with singing? Like, I think about my Father delighting over me, and that even on those days when I'm getting it wrong, that doesn't change his delight in me. Because on those days where you're getting it wrong and you're struggling, I still have so much delight in you. Like, and if I have the capacity to have that delight for you, dude, like,
come on.
Our Father in heaven, who is perfect. I mean, I know you think I'm perfect. Why are you laughing?
Sorry, my bad.
Okay. But he really is.
That's good.
Like, he really is. And he's not ashamed when we falter or stumble or question him. Yeah. And like, if you were to ever come to me and be like, it doesn't feel like you love me, my heart for you would be to say, oh, but I do. Let me show you. And I think that that's our Father's posture to us too.
Absolutely.
I think it is.
And he's like, and even if it's like your eyes, just the scales have to be taken off your eyes.
Yeah, that's a word.
It's just like you're in the middle of all this chaos. You're doing some crazy things, making mistakes all the time, and you're like, God, why aren't you loving me?
Yeah,
I'm in this mess. Yeah. Why are you leaving me in this mess?
Yeah.
And then sure enough, God says, well, hold on.
Yeah.
let me open your eyes real quick.
Yeah.
Because there's stuff all around you, and I've actually got this hedge of protection
Yep.
right over you because you've been making these mistakes, and you could have fallen into the deep end.
Yep.
I think about that in a lot of things that just in my life, just like even mistakes I've made, and I won't get into everything now, probably in a future episode, but like I remember even just like drug abuse and stuff like that. I remember the first time you caught me with like pills and stuff. And,
I remember that day too. I thought I was going to die.
And I just remember like I was protected.
Yeah.
There was protection over me. One, because I got caught. And one thing I hate about this is I used to pray like, God, help me get away from all these things. And then it was always the time, like after I prayed that, like I'd get caught and I'm like, I hate you, God. Like not like that. Like, and then I started praying like, God, help fix this situation, but don't tell my mom.
Yeah. Well, see, this is where I trumped you because I always prayed that the Lord, if you guys were going to stumble, that you would get caught quickly.
Right.
Like, not that you would never stumble, because I think you have to stumble. I think that there has to be a season in your life where you stumble so you learn how to get up.
Right.
If you never fall down, you never figure out how to get up. So I didn't, maybe I should have prayed differently. Gosh, I don't know saying it now, but I don't mind the fact that my kids are going to make mistakes, but I don't want you to wallow in those mistakes. Because, you know, it is my failures that shaped me into who I am.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Like, truly. The best parts of me are the parts of me that grew in the deepest, darkest heartaches.
Wow.
Yeah.
And that's the truth here. Like, and I remember I went on a trip, and like I said, I'm going to tell a lot more details later, but
oh man, this is a whole, we could do an entire episode of this series. Like it really, like this story in particular is so good because so much from a mother perspective, from a ministry perspective, from a kid's perspective, like there was so much happening at this time.
A lot.
Yeah.
Do I tell it? Should I tell it now or wait?
Maybe we do another episode with it, but you can kind of tease it now. Like,
I'll say I went on a trip to Montana, Wyoming. It was almost a month-long trip, I think.
Oh yeah, it was.
And I lost my wallet.
You did?
That's how everything started. And I will say why it makes me upset now when I think about this is my wallet was right in front of my eyes the whole time it was sitting on the table. But I believe it was God's protection over my life.
Yeah.
Because that was the start of a change in a struggle that I didn't think I'd ever be able to beat. And that I
like
thought
you lost your wallet when you were packing.
Right the day I was leaving.
Oh, yeah.
I didn't know where it was, and it was sitting on a table.
Yeah. Oh, and you were panicking and looking for it, and I made you clean your room and then everything.
Everything.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm telling you what.
That'll have to be on a. That's our teaser.
Yeah. That's a teaser. I really think that's a whole different episode. Like for real. Just powerful stuff. But circling back to all the things that we, maybe to put a nice bow on this episode, I think the thing, if I had one piece of wisdom that you could apply to everything, I think you have to be honest with yourself and you have to be honest with your Savior. And I think you just have to do the next right thing. And what I mean, honest with yourself, we lie to ourselves a whole lot. Like we want to think that we're better humans than we really are.
Yeah.
We want to ignore those little things in our spirit. We want to ignore like roots of racism or prejudice. We want to ignore the truth about addiction. Right. Or sinful behaviors. We don't want to tell ourselves the truth about ourselves. So we got to tell ourselves the truth about ourselves. We got to be honest there. And we have to be honest with ourselves and we have to be honest with Jesus. Like he already knows. Like spoiler alert, he already knows. We have to be vulnerable. Like you've got to be to a place where you communicate what's really going on. Maybe just through prayer or through biblical community. And you got to do the next right thing. Like, Aaron, our lives changed not because I had a 10-year plan to chase Jesus, but because I had a 10-second plan that said,
Wow.
how do I put what I've learned about Christ in action? Man walking, needs a ride, give him a ride. I don't have to know anything else.
And that's all where it starts.
Yes.
You just have to say, I'll give him a ride. You don't have to say, well, he's moving in with me now.
Right.
Because he might not be the one to move in with you.
Correct. Every person who came through our ministry didn't move in, but the ones who did move in, I can look back now and I can see with great clarity what God was doing.
Right.
So the next right thing is what you have to do. And as you are doing the next right thing, you must be honest with God and with yourself, and you must be vulnerable enough to ask for help from the community. Had I not, and I struggle with this, and so do you, and I'm assuming that a lot of your listeners do too.
Right.
We think that we have to have it all figured out to follow Christ, and we think that we have to have all the answers, but there's a reason that we're called to be the part of the body of Christ. That means that we need each other to accomplish this mission. So in my ministry, it wasn't just me. I'm smart enough to know that there are other followers of Christ who, where I am weak, they are strong, and they can help me accomplish the purposes of Christ. And we get to work together to accomplish the good, but I have to be vulnerable enough to ask for help.
Come on.
I gotta ask for help.
Yeah.
And sometimes that's embarrassing because I don't want to tell people that I'm struggling. You know, I don't want to tell people that this is too hard, or that I miss my grandmother, and that I'm losing too much in chasing Jesus.
Right.
But I needed the body of Christ, and the body of Christ has shown up for me in, that's a whole other episode too, in ways that it's ridiculous.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's just deep. That's deep.
Yeah, we're swimming.
Come on, I love that. I want to ask one more question.
Okay.
And we'll wrap this bad boy up. I want y'all to know if this isn't the number one listened to episode on this podcast, I'm gonna be upset, and God is too. No,
I don't think. No, delete.
It's like there's always that pastor that's like he's like better at marketing than he is preaching.
Oh, for sure. Yes.
That might be me.
No,
but
you are good at marketing. Like, you are a hype man. You make me want to buy junk I don't even need.
You're like, why do I need this toothbrush for my butt? You know, like
what?
I just made that up.
Yeah, don't sell that.
Yeah, I'm gonna sell a Loveworks toothbrush. That's just for your butt.
Does your butt have teeth?
I don't. I haven't even checked.
Okay, well, don't. Okay.
I think I've heard some people's do. There are people that are born with tails. You ever heard of that?
Yeah, I have. There is actually a name for that, but I don't know the name.
Dog?
Oh, that's not a person. That's an animal.
I'm just playing. Some people are probably going to get upset about that. I don't even know or care.
You should care.
Okay, I'm sorry. I care.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you're an awesome mom. You're a great leader.
Thanks.
You hire the unhireable, which is the most beautiful thing.
You worked for me at one point too.
Yeah. I do want to let
and also got fired.
I hated that. Let me tell you this right now. It doesn't matter how great your parent is, your mother is. It doesn't matter how awesome your relationship is. Don't you dare. Ever.
Oh, I think I was so stressed out because you were working for me when that business first started, and I'm confessing I knew nothing. Nothing. And I had to figure it out. I was building the plane, trying to be a mom to half a dozen kids, running a ministry, and dying. And at that point, I had not yet learned to be vulnerable and ask for help. I thought I had something to prove.
I get that.
I think you could work for me now.
You think so?
Yeah, I really think you could.
You hiring?
I don't know, maybe. But I was hard to work for you because I expected perfection. This is my very public apology.
Oh, man, totally forgiven.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, I remember working for you, and I remember thinking, like, man, even as like a 16-year-old, I was like, I'm gonna get fired from this job and spanked.
Yes,
yes. I don't even know.
Yes, and you used to hate the joke. You remember you used to get so mad at me because I would say, ha, 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 he's the only one here who can get fired and grounded all in the same day. And you would laugh, and then I would see you seething on the inside, like you only laughed because you thought I needed you to laugh. And that was so nice of you. It was like a courtesy laugh, but you also had fury burning.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, I'm so sorry.
It was just a job that I was like, man, what more? Like it was just for me. It was like, oh, I'm doing so much, and I was like,
Yeah.
I'm not gaining much from this.
No, and dude, I had you doing hard stuff. If you are a family member of a small business owner, you do all the things from the
Right.
banking to the baking to the serving of customers to like you had as a 16-year-old a whole lot of responsibility. Like, dude, I remember you used to come in and help us make cookies before you went to school.
Right.
Yeah,
Hated
and you
that.
you hated every second
And
of
I
it.
wasn't on clock.
No.
Yeah, dude. Hey, what's the people that do you get in trouble if you don't pay people?
Okay, excuse me. This podcast.
What is that called?
It's called. We don't talk about that. We
President
don't talk about
Trump. If you're listening to this, I got some money that I haven't received yet.
Excuse me. I bought you
About
groceries.
$12 because my paycheck's about $1 an hour. I don't believe that that's the right pay for somebody that's 16 years old and working 90 hours a week.
You didn't work 90 hours a week. Boy, bye.
You would be like, Aaron, you got to skip school today because you've got to work for me.
These are such lies.
No, I just skip school on my own.
Don't tell the people that.
Trust me, they can tell. They like this guy. There's only a select group of people that do podcasts. Ones that are like super funny, ones that are way too spiritual, and then people that didn't go to school.
So, and you're all of those things.
Hey,
You're the trifecta.
hey, I'm not. Well, I'll take funny.
Yeah. You are spiritual. You're too spiritual for some people and not spiritual enough for other people, and that's how you know you're getting it right. If you make everybody happy, you are not walking with the Lord appropriately. You're going to tick somebody off always.
Oh man, I take myself off sometimes.
Yeah, I know.
It's just
You a few minutes ago, you said you had one more question, and then we didn't get to.
I think
question.
I forgot it actually.
Yeah. You talking about me being a leader and awesome,
Right.
and there was a question with that.
Right. That doesn't sound like me. I'm just kidding. Yeah. So you're a leader.
Yep.
You're a ministry owner, and
I don't think you can call it ministry owner. I
say
founded a ministry.
Founder.
Yeah.
I say owner because you take ownership and leadership in that way.
Yeah.
So yeah, founder is a good word. That's the more spiritual word. So
It's actually the more appropriate word.
you're like get it right. You're actually making me sound bad because you're like you're making me sound bad because you're saying I didn't pay you, which is true, and you're also saying I don't know what else I said that was bad about you.
It's okay.
Yeah. So you're a mom. What are some of the struggles in just like in parenting in those regards? Like you have
A million kids.
How many kids do you have?
I have 6.
Okay.
So I have 2 biological,
Yeah.
and then 3 completely adopted, and 1 who might as well have been adopted, who was with us for quite some time. So.
When you're a single mom too.
Yeah,
Let's
I'm a
put that
single
out
mom
there.
now. Yeah, single mom now. Not by choice, but
Right.
a single mom. And I'm not mad about it anymore. That was another season where I was like, what are you doing, God? Like, why is my marriage falling apart? Like, I'm following you. I've sacrificed all these things for you. How dare you let my marriage be destroyed, Lord? You could fix it. Why are you not fixing it? And now I'm on the flip side of it, looking back going, oh, wow, God, you are so good.
That was messy.
Yeah, it was super messy. It was embarrassing, humiliating. But that season of my life, I had to figure out whether my identity was in ministry and being a wife and a mom, or whether my identity was in Christ.
Come on.
And it turns out my identity had been in ministry and in being a wife and a mom. And when those things begin to be stripped away, you got to figure out really quickly what is important to you.
Right.
And what you believe. And I really did wrestle with, how a good God could let such crappy stuff continually happen. And I raged against God for quite some time. I think that was the hardest time in motherhood because I was struggling so much myself, but as a mom, you got to keep it together for your kids. And so even on those days where it was so hard for me to get out of the bed and stand up and figure out how to face the day, there were still lunches to be made, suppers to be done, groceries to be bought, laundry to be done, errands to be run, there's after school practices, there's homework, there's all this stuff, and you got to make it happen. And for me, learning to be vulnerable enough to ask for help, whether it's from Christ or from my neighbors, that was hard for me. You know, and you don't want to fail as a mom. And I felt like I was failing y'all because I couldn't pray hard enough, work hard enough, or love hard enough to save my marriage.
Yeah.
Turns out both people have to want to be married.
Yeah, that is the truth. That is the truth.
It only works when both people want it.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, and honestly, what came to my mind, even as you were just saying that, is like if you're not willing to be vulnerable, you're going to be drowning and nobody's going to see it.
They won't even know.
You're just going to be out there in the middle of the abyss, feeling all alone, crying out to anybody that will listen, and nobody has heard anything about you, so they're not going to hear you.
Yeah. Well, there were lots of days, and this may seriously have to be another podcast.
Oh, we'll have another one.
Yeah. But there were lots of days when in the separation before my marriage actually ended.
This will all be on this night. We got to get deep into that. So
yeah, okay.
Yeah. Well, you can say what you're going to say.
Well, I mean, there were lots of days where vulnerability for me looked like loving myself enough to let myself rest.
Wow.
So the kids would go to school. You were traveling with the ministry you were traveling with at the time. Right. And I still had 3 young kids living at home. So the 3 big boys are all out on their own doing their thing. And I had 3 young kids at home, still do. And they would go to school, and I would go back into my office, and I would sit down in my bathrobe, because it was hard for me to even get dressed a lot of days. Wow. And I would sit there with my Bible, and I would want to read my Bible, and I couldn't. And I would allow myself to be vulnerable enough to say, God, I want to read your word, but I don't, because I'm pissed.
Right.
And I'm hurting, and I'm broken, and I'm embarrassed, and I feel like you have abandoned me. So I am going to sit here. I'm just going to sit here, and I need you to meet me here. And wow. I would sit for a while, and if I couldn't feel his presence, I would get out of my chair and lay down in the floor. I had a blanket that was on the floor behind my desk, and I would lay that blanket out, and I would sprawl out on that floor, face down, and I would just cry. And I would beg God to meet me there. Yeah. And sometimes that would be for hours. And it wasn't like I had these beautiful prayers. It was like my crying and my wailing was an offering to God. Yeah. And I would cry until I couldn't cry anymore. And I would rest until I felt like I had enough strength to get up. And then I would get up, and often I would be putting on clothes right before the kids would get home from school. Wow. So that they didn't have to see the breakdown. But I allowed myself to be vulnerable enough to be honest with the Lord. Like, I cannot do this, and I'm real mad at you. But also to care for myself, to let myself rest if I needed to rest. So
that's impactful. That's powerful. It's hard.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I want you to know you're an amazing mother. I think you're an amazing leader.
Thanks, babe.
I think you're a great friend to so many people.
Yeah.
And you still have people come up from when you were just in your 20s and hug you and say, "Oh, this is Miss Hass," because that was your name initially.
Yeah.
But she was a teacher, but you're changing the world.
I don't know that I get up every day and think I'm going to change the world today, but I do get up every day and I say, how can I be a better version of me today than I was yesterday?
Come on.
And how can I find the next right thing to do? And like today, the next right thing was to spend time with my kid, like to just hang out with you and allow you to rest and eat good food.
Come on. This has been, I was thinking about this today, and hopefully I don't upset people that live around me, but this has been one of the greatest, like, I'm going to say weekends because it's kind of
Yeah.
a weekend.
We can call it a weekend.
Greatest weekends I have had since I've been in Michigan, and it's because I was able to just unplug, relax, and I think ministry still took place.
Yeah, for sure.
Because we did life together, and I think that's what ministry really looks like if you're wanting to apply it in that regard.
Just think about the interactions we've had, though. Even though we've just done a lot of eating and shopping,
Which praise God.
yeah, praise God, and all the people said amen.
Yeah.
I think about the servers who served us at the restaurants. We were both intentional to connect with the servers. We were intentional to be generous when the Lord prompted us to be generous. And we have had gospel conversations that weren't churchy, just real conversations, encouraging each other to do the dang thing. Like, it's been good.
I love that.
It's been good. I think of you more as a quirky young friend than as a child now. Like, I don't view our time together as I'm hanging out with my son. I really think of you as a co-leader in ministry.
Wow.
Yeah, it's really cool. Like, it's so weird because I don't have a desire to ground you anymore.
Oh,
like,
thank
I just
God.
want to encourage you.
Because if you even if you were like you try to ground me now, I'd be like, I can't say no.
You're like, what am I going to do?
Here, take it.
Take
fine.
it,
You can have my phone. You can have the podcast. It's yours.
I'm not taking your podcast from you.
that's good.
But I would like to come back on the podcast. It'd be really cool if, like, I mean, I'm not the boss of you, and you can do whatever.
You're fired.
I would absolutely love to be a part of this in as many ways as I could.
Wow.
You know, just anytime you have a topic that I can relate to, dude, I will. We can riff back and forth. Is that a thing? Do you say riff? Do the youngsters say that?
I don't know. I didn't even know what Riz was. I was preaching at a church once.
Oh, what?
And somebody was like, "You've got so much Riz when you preach," and I was like, "What are you talking about?"
And, well, what I need clarification on is this skibbity doo doo toilet or whatever.
Skibbity
it is.
toilet?
Yes,
Yeah,
what
I
does
don't
that
know what that
mean?
means either. I don't know what that means, and people say that. But I was at this church, okay. So and I was preaching. The kid comes up to me, or the student comes up to me after, and he was like, "Dude, you got so much Riz when you speak." And I was like, "What do you mean?
Like,
what
is this?
Hopefully, I haven't said this on a podcast before because this was transformational in my ministry time.
It was.
But he was like, "What do you mean by that?" And I was like, "What do you mean by that?" And he was like, you got Riz." And I was like, "You're saying the same thing twice."
Yeah.
And he was like, "Well, it just means that you're the Rizzler of Oz." And I was like, "Okay, buddy, stop using it in a sentence.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I'm gonna punch you to the moon."
Yeah. Oh,
And
yeah. You shouldn't threaten people from the pulpit.
I was down. I was just talking to him. We were on
Okay.
the
Also,
floor.
still shouldn't threaten people from the floor.
Yeah, I was no
Anyway.
longer a preacher. I was just Aaron.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
But I'm talking to him, and I was like, "Okay, so like, what's the definition?" He was like, "It just means that you're really good at like you can talk flirtatiously and stuff." And I was like, "When I preach?"
Like, also, I'm not trying to pick you up.
I was like, "Yeah, I'm pretty sure you're 14." So
And also, what?
yeah, I was like, so maybe I was like, I'm think I'm retiring actually.
Yes, actually, this is the day I retire.
Ever since then, I've had a podcast.
Yeah, I love that. I love that so much. Hey, and I mean, I feel like we should wrap it up, but I do want to say a couple of things to you. I know I'm your mom, but I'm crazy proud of what you're doing.
Wow.
And I love the heart behind it. Big facts. I know that you'd love to be famous, but I know also that you would love to be famous for making a difference and not just for the sake of being famous.
Yeah.
Like I'm here for it. Like, I will be your biggest fan. Whatever, man. I'm so proud of you. I'm proud of the young man you are, old man you are, man.
Hold on. Hey, old eliminated from your
Old
vocabulary.
eliminate. Okay, yeah, we're not saying that. But I'm proud of the man you are, and I'm proud of the heart that you have for others. And I've seen it.
Yeah.
I've seen it. It's real. Mad props to you.
Thank you.
You must have had a great mother.
Yeah, she was a really old mother.
Oh, your mom.
Man, I love that so much. Thank you. You'll definitely be back. I don't even care how we have to make it happen, but we're gonna make it happen.
Word.
So, any closing thoughts?
Do the next right thing. Let's do it. Go
Come
change
on.
the world.
Lock in. It's game time, baby. Get it in your head.
Yes.
That's
Is
good.
it worth it? Let me work it. That's probably not a good ministry song.
I don't even care. This is not even labeled as like the quote unquote Christian podcast. So
Okay.
we're just
Yeah, it's
we're
worth
just
it.
we're just doing things, you
Okay.
know.
Yeah, just do the thing.
This is the Love Works podcast, and this was an awesome episode with my favorite guest in the world, Mom. So, yeah. Peace out. Love you a bunch.